Part 3 is the misunderstandings around bracing. Bracing, again, has been associated with neutral spine and the idea that you need to walk around like a robot with a 100% full brace of your abdominals, and that's going to be helpful to your spine, to your low back pain. What I'm going to do in this part is talk about some of the context about when bracing's good and when bracing's bad, and again coming to some sort of understanding about when and how to use it. So first of all, what is bracing? Bracing is essentially the activation of the muscles of the abdominal wall, the rectus abdominis at the front, the obliques at the, let's just say, the sides. What is it meant to do? It's meant to stabilize the spine. So what does stabilize the spine mean? You've got 5 lumbar vertebrae that sit on top of each other. There is no bony structure like the rib cage holding them in place, giving them stability. That's required by the muscles. So the muscles are there to stabilize the spine. So when you activate the abdominal wall, that puts tension on, like guy wires on a tent, like the ropes of a sail. It anchors the spine to the pelvis, essentially. Gives it stability. Now, when a brace is useful, I guess I'll do first, and then when is it not useful? They're kind of tied together, essentially. So when is it useful? One is heavy lifting. So if we're lifting something heavy, and by heavy is all to do with the spine that's lifting it. So if there's a deconditioned spine, something is going to be heavy for one person and light for another. Because if you've got a power lifter who's just going to go and lift a box up off the floor at his house and move it across the kitchen or whatever, then he's probably not going to need to brace that. But if you've got just a regular person who's got a deconditioned spine and they've got to lift a heavy box up, they're going to require more of a brace than the person who's the power lifter. So I guess that's sort of the first thing, is the individual that is doing the lifting. It's what's heavy to them. So that's the first thing. So we would brace. Now, we would brace appropriately. Now, for the person that does the powerlifting, if it's a heavy enough box, they may need to just brace lightly. You know, they can lift a 200 kilo deadlift, let's say. But let's say it's a 50 kilo object, a big flower pot, whatever, I don't know. It may be a relatively simple weight for them to move, but they do need to think about it, and it's like, okay, I just need to, I need to brace a bit. They're not going to go over and just be very casual about it, is what I'm trying to say. They may need to do something. But let's just take this deconditioned person. They've got to move the same flower pot. They may need to really tuck in, get tight, and use a bit of brute force to move it. Whereas the powerlifter is just like, oh, I just got to activate these muscles and get this thing moved. It's not a huge problem. So again, we've got those individual differences. We're also understanding that there is an appropriateness to the brace. There is a heavy brace and there is a light brace. And again, that depends on the individual, because it depends what's heavy for the individual. We know it's going to stabilize the spine. Again, if someone's got pain, then again, there's another set of rules. So like I talked about with neutral spine, there are rules for each type of person doing the lifting, if you will. So the brace will be sort of required in a different way for different people. Again, depending on the individual, slow, controlled movement. For the deconditioned person, for the person with back pain, you're going to require more slow, controlled movement. Because what you're able to then do is think through the movement as you're doing it. If you've got someone who's very conditioned, very strong, they aren't going to need to think through it so much, because they can do 200 kilos, 300 kilos, 400 kilos, whatever it is. They can do that. Their mind is very well attuned to it. Their body is very well attuned to it. Therefore, that works. So, slow and controlled movements, certainly to start with, depending on the spine that's lifting and depending on the object that is being lifted, be it a lightish box or a heavyish plant pot full of soil and potentially a plant in there as well, adding to the weight. So we've got that slow and controlled movement. Now, with regards to pain, when is it useful and when is it not useful? Again, if we went through a consultation and an assessment and we started learning about the pain and it started to come out that compression was a problem for the spine. So what we may find is when we test the brace, it may enhance the pain. Because what's essentially happening, when you tense the muscles around the spine, if you can imagine I'm holding onto a sponge here and I'm squeezing it with my fist. That's essentially what's happening around the spine. It's known as compression around the spine. There's axial compression, which is the squashing of it from top and bottom. And then there's like a cylindrical compression, if you will, where you sort of, the muscles wrap around it and they essentially crush it. Now, if that is a trigger, then it's probably not going to be advantageous to use a brace. So we may need to manage how that is braced. We may need to manage how much the individual lifts with regards to load. So they may require someone to help them to be able to lift an object so we can half the load, or if we get a couple of people to half it, sort of third the load that they're lifting. Because their spine can't deal with the compression required for a heavy brace. Now again, like the neutral spine, that doesn't mean that it's going to be the same forever. Because as the spine conditions, after 3 months we retest. Okay, we can cope with a little bit more. Okay, let's lift a little bit more. Again, another 3 months. Okay, we can cope with it, we can brace, we can do everything. We can heavy brace, we can heavy lift now. So we don't need to do it over time. We use the assessment and the consultation to be able to know when to use something and when not to use something. Because like the big three, the neutral spine and the brace, they're all tools that can be used. They sit up on a shelf, and when we require them, we pull them off the shelf and we implement them. And then when we don't need them, we take them back off the individual and put them back up on the shelf. So we need to understand rehabilitation from this perspective. Again, not going down this 4 exercises, do them, your back pain gets better. 4 stretches, do them, your back pain gets better. Or I've got back pain, strengthen your core. It's not that simple. What we need to understand is a more in-depth knowledge understanding, or we need to have a more in-depth knowledge of understanding so we can actually go and deal with it. If you want to watch more content like this, hit the subscribe button below, and you'll get sent more content like this if you're enjoying it. And again, if you're enjoying it, hit the like button as well. But when it comes to a brace, what is it? It's the activation of the abdominal wall. Why do we use it? To stabilize the spine. Is it useful for everyone? Not always. It depends on the spine. If it's painful when we brace, or it increases the pain, then it's probably not advantageous to completely use it. But we do need to enhance the ability to do it, which means it changes over time. When we might use it might be during heavy lifting, but again, that depends on the individual.